Hi, this is Sutradhaar, the storyteller, with the next installment of the Mahabharata. You can't see it, but I'm on the banks of the river Ganga in a place called Kodalia, which is around 40 kilometers away from Rishikesh, up towards the road to um, Badrinath. This place that I'm standing here um, is called the Daniel's Dip, and there's a very, very interesting story attached to that. Mr. Daniels was a British officer posted in these parts, and he was doing a topographical survey or something of that sort. And once, when he jumped into the river to take a bath out here, he never came out, died. And with the macabre twist, people started calling this place Daniel's Dip. Still waiting for him to come out. That's not what our story is all about. In our last story, we learned about how the 5 Pandavas were born and eventually they made their way back to Hastinapur after Pandu died. And who received them but the other side? It was Dhritarashtra who received them. And it was their cousins, the Kauravas. Today's story is about the Kauravas. The story of the birth of the Pandavas is a wonderful story. It's a story full of magic, full of wonder, full of divinity. Make no mistake about it. The story of the birth of the Kauravas is as strange and weird, but in a very, very terrible way. When Yudhishthir was born in the forest to Kunti, the news of his birth reached Hastinapur, reached Dhritarashtra. And Dhritarashtra was happy because he loved his brother Pandu. But he was also extremely upset because now he knew that if he ever had a son, he could never really be the king of Hastinapur. Because the rules of Hastinapur said that the eldest born son of any generation would become the next king or the next Yuvraj. And Yudhishthir was the son of Pandu, and he was the firstborn of the generation. He was especially upset because his wife Gandhari had been pregnant for over an year. If indeed a son had been born to Gandhari within the stipulated time frame of 9 months, 10 days, he, not Yudhishthir, would be the next king. When news of the same reached Gandhari's chambers, Gandhari screamed with disappointment. She knew that her son could never be the rightful king. Here's the story behind this. How can a lady stay pregnant for over an year? And the story goes back by 1 year. A year before this incident, Vedvyas came to visit his son, Dhritarashtra. Gandhari served him well, took care of him, and he was so happy that he gave Gandhari a boon that she would have 100 sons. Gandhari screamed with joy when she heard it. After Vedvyas left, Dhritarashtra and Gandhari rekindled their love for each other, and soon she was pregnant. When she went and gave the news to Dhritarashtra, Dhritarashtra declared a state of joy for the nation. Entire Hastinapur erupted in joy. Money was given out, the poor were taken care of, and every single house of Hastinapur received some gift or the other. But then something very strange happened. The pregnancy lasted for more than a year. And it was still continuing when Gandhari and Dhritarashtra got the news of Yudhishthir's birth, Gandhari was in pain, not just mentally but physically. For a year, she had been carrying her pregnancy and it was painful, it was hurting, and she got so frustrated that she started beating her own stomach with all the force she could muster. This resulted in an abortion. But no fetus came out of her stomach. What came out was a huge, hard, rock-like mass of flesh. Her maids all around her, her attendants, grew scared when they explained what they saw. Because remember, Gandhari had tied a handkerchief around her eyes because her husband was blind. She said, if my husband can't see, nor should I be able to see. This happened when they got married. Gandhari instructed her maids to take this lump of flesh, as it were, and throw it in the forest. And a maidservant carried that lump of flesh, this huge, hard, rocky mass of flesh. And just as she was leaving the city gates, Vedvyas came by. Vedvyas, that man, intervened again. The man who I believe was responsible for much of the Mahabharata. Vedvyas stopped the maidservant and said, what is this that you're carrying? Where do you think you're going? The maidservant explained. And Vedvyas got angry and clutched her by her hands and said, you are not doing anything of that sort. You are coming back to the palace with me. Vedvyas held her so hard that it hurt. He literally dragged her and that fleshy, rocky piece to the palace. I said, Gandhari, what have you done? Gandhari couldn't say anything. Vedvyas said, immediately get me 100 earthen pots, vats as it were. Fill them up with oil, 100 of them at least. And the attendants went and carried in 100 vats, 100 pots filled with oil. Vedvyas physically tore this hard rock-like piece of flesh into 100 pieces. Took the first piece and put it inside the vat. This piece was larger than the others. Into the oil it went and made strange noises. Like that, he placed all the other remaining 99 pieces in the other 99 vats, in the other 99 pots, and covered them up with a cloth, and yet there was one small piece of flesh left. So an attendant asked, what do we do with this? He said, don't worry. These are your 100 sons, Gandhari, and this last small piece of flesh is your daughter. Get me another pot. Get me another earthen pot, he said. A pot was bought, oil was poured in, and he put the last piece of flesh inside, covered them up with a cloth and said, carry them all these 101 pieces of earth, as it were, these earthen pots, into a hidden chamber. And there was this hidden chamber right below Gandhari's bedroom, where all these 101 pots of flesh were hidden and shut up. Another year passed by. Another year of Gandhari's anxiety, and news came that Kunti was to give birth again. Bhim was to be born. The moment this news reached, and perhaps the moment that Bhim was born far away in the hills, there was a huge explosion. The first of the pots burst open. People rushed into the room. They opened up this hidden chamber and rushed in. Gandhari following, Dhritarashtra came, Vidur came, and there they saw a grotesque little baby, already sitting down, looking lewdly at them. Sharp teeth. Or so says the Mahabharata. That was Duryodhan, the firstborn. Slowly, the other pots burst open, and his 100 other brothers, his 99 other brothers, were born, as was his sister Dusala. Dusasan, Vikarna, Subala. I don't remember all the 100 names, but each one of them were born that night. As the earthen pots burst open, omens were not good. There were birds of prey circling the Hastinapur skies, and Vidur knew something was wrong. Vidur the learned knew that this did not bode well. He went to Dhritarashtra, who was delirious with joy with his 101 children, and said, "Brother, the omens are not good. If you really want to save Hastinapur, and if you really want to save Kuruvansh, get rid of your firstborn, kill him." He said the same to Gandhari. They did not listen to him. They were blinded by the filial love, as was natural, I guess. In time, these 101 children grew in the palace, spoiled and pampered. But that was not all. That night, there was another son that was born to Dhritarashtra, not from Gandhari, but from her maid. This lady had an affair with Dhritarashtra, and the son born was called Yuyutsu, who would have a very important part to play in the Mahabharata later on. This was the story of the birth of the 100 Kauravas and their one sister, Dusala. These were the 101 brothers and sister who received the Pandavas when they came back from the forest. They were not very happy because they knew Yudhishthir was the firstborn. Duryodhan knew that as long as Yudhishthir was alive, he could not have a claim to the throne. Furthermore, he also saw the second-born, Bhim, big and strong, bigger and stronger than Duryodhan, who was the strongest of all the Kauravas. And he knew he had competition. The war started then. The enmity started then. Hastinapur was never to be at peace again. This is Sutradhaar, the storyteller, signing off for the day from the banks of the Ganga, which you can't see because it's way too dark. It was a darker night in which the Kauravas were born. More about that later. Next story, I'll tell you a little about Bhishma, where he came from, another character who shaped the Mahabharata. And then we'll move on to the enmity between the Pandavas and the Kauravas and the way it shaped our Itihasa, our history. Till then, like, subscribe, comment, tell me how I can be better, and share. And stay curious, because it's all about stories. See you next time.